Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Christian Yang. I'm here with my good friend Yia Vang, chef of Union Kitchen. This is episode 4 of the Expectations podcast. I appreciate you coming out, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. No problem. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Yia's a great chef. He's come. When did you guys start? 2017-ish.
Yeah, like end of 16, 17. I don't know. It's all a big blur.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I mean, they've done a lot of great stuff, and I wanted to get him on because he has a very unique journey to a lot of there's different career paths that are out there. And he's really put. I think for me, he's really put the Hmong food in the conversation of just food in general out here in the Minnesota area, and I think it's also reached places like CNN and I think Vice Media came out to you as well.
Yeah, we did an article with them.
Yeah. So I mean, he's really reached pretty much nationwide. Actually, CNN, so that's worldwide. So that's awesome, man. But yeah, I guess kind of give us like what's chapter 1, and I always like to start with this question: what's chapter 1 in your book as far as like your childhood? You growing up, how are you like as a kid, stuff like that.
Yeah, so what I always tell people is I never wanted to do this. I never wanted to cook my whole life. Before probably before about 8 years ago was like trying to get out of cooking. So cooking for me was just like in high school it was just a job. Like you're a stupid high school kid, so it's like, oh yeah, $9 an hour, cool. And then in college, again, it was just a job. It was like I was gonna go to college, I was gonna do all these other things. It was a job I can work on nights and weekends, make some money. But yeah, I never wanted to do this. I tried my hardest to get out of it, every time. Yeah.
Well, break that down. Like you said, you had a couple jobs in high school and college. What were you doing?
Just being like, a lot of, in high school it was just, oh man, this is so funny. In high school, my first like cooking job, like quote unquote cooking job was, one of my buddies that I played football with, his uncle owned a racetrack, like a kind of stock car racetrack.
Okay.
And every Friday night they would open, and then they just needed people to literally just like drop cheese curds, do French fries. But since I was like, so there was like a lot of like younger girls working there, and then I was like one of the 3 guys that worked there, so like none of the girls wanted to work on the grill or the area, so I would literally just put grill burgers and chicken and brats, and that's all I did.
Jeez,
okay. So and again, it was just one night a week. It was Friday night. It was after football season, so we didn't have games anymore. So it was Friday night, and I literally would just go out there and work like I would just say, I get there at 5, 6 o'clock, and then work till like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Yeah.
Was that like your first experience with food?
It wasn't my first experience with food. I always liked food. I think that was one of those things. Like I think every Hmong kid likes food.
Yeah.
Like growing up, all these like I would say like with like Mika kids and stuff like that, they would always be all like, oh, we're playing, like I'm playing baseball, or I'm on this hockey team, or I'm on this basketball team. A lot of Hmong kids growing up, it was all like, oh yeah, and then like, oh yeah, like and stuff like that. So all those things, I think that a lot of Hmong kids even today still kind of food resonates inside of us.
For sure.
So I think we all have kind of our own thing. I think I talk to a lot of Hmong friends, and their first memories of cooking is like scrambled eggs, or learning how to make pad thai, or learning how to do some kind of making mean, or something like that. So I think that I think Hmong people, especially Hmong kids, we always have a background, a little bit of food.
For
sure. But I wasn't until when we were growing up, my dad would work first shift and my mom would work second shift. So we had that little in between where we just had to fend for ourselves coming home from school. And I would always just kind of make something. But
cool.
But this is basically it.
Okay.
And then it wasn't until I got to probably college that I kind of started liking the especially with food, like learning the different techniques.
What piqued that interest?
So it's very, I don't know if you had this experience, but I knew growing up, my parents really want, education is number one. Most Hmong kids, education. But the way that I think that our parents looked at education was very classical, one way of like, be good at math, be good at reading, know your science. It was very basic classical education.
Yep.
I just don't work well with like reading. Like if I read something, I don't get it unless I touch it, unless I feel it. So I knew that I was an ambulatory learner. So like I have to move. I have to, like I did well in like classes where it was more hands on.
Yep.
But if it was like reading, English, even mathematics, like I didn't do well in it because like it just didn't resonate with me.
Makes sense.
And so I think that a lot of times it was, that whole like, like be better, be better, you can do better, That's why for me, like in high school, sports was huge, like being able, to play football, dude.
You play football?
Yeah. So that was my thing. That was my ticket out of. So when I started playing football in high school, not a lot of Hmong kids were playing football. The football, like the flag football craze, wasn't
there yet.
No, it wasn't.
It didn't exist.
Yeah. So I remember I started, and I was the first Hmong kid in my whole school to ever like step on the field.
What'd you play?
I played offensive tackle and defensive tackle. Okay. Yeah. So and I was one of the bigger guys too. So, and then. I'm really when I love something, I really get like kind of deep into it. Yeah. So I started football. I remember my freshman year. It was actually my freshman year. It was the summer of my freshman. I was going to be a freshman. Yeah. And my mom thought me just sitting around the house was just like, in the summer, right? I'm just goofing around.
This is high school freshman.
Yep.
8th to freshman.
Yep. Freshman year. And then my mom was like, hey. Why don't you get out and do something? And I remember going back past the school and I saw these kids like playing out there, So in what we had is we have what's called captain's practice. Yeah. So before the actual like regulation practice can start, about 2 weeks before,
just the kids come out.
Yeah, just the kids come out and they do passing rounds, some blocking drills and stuff like that, and run by the captains and whatever. And so I was a freshman, I saw these kids out there, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's cool. And I literally, the next week, walked in, and it was, I think I was like, I was at two-a-days, and I had a rude awakening. Like, I never played football before. I've watched it. Yeah. It was like my first week, like, I couldn't move. Like, I got the snot kicked out of me. Yeah. I remember my freshman year was a big learning year. Like, I never lift weights, never did anything. But like I was decent enough to hold my own. Yeah. So like I played on the JV team and everything. Yeah. And then, I haven't even thought about this stuff in a while. And then I remember my coach, one of my JV coach, who was also our defensive back coach for the varsity team, said to me, hey, if you really put the work in to weights and learning how to like move, like football movement. Yeah. Like I bet you can start next year as a sophomore. And he's like, you got the size, man. Like
for varsities?
For varsity. Yeah. He's like, you got the size, but you got to just learn how to move.
The techniques and stuff. Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, okay. And so that year, so I did this so bad. I didn't have a Y membership, but our local YMCA, the door there's this back door that's never locked. So one of my buddies and I, he had the membership. Yeah. So we would like sneak, we sneak in. Like he didn't sneak in because he had the membership, but he told me about the door. He's like, just get in that back door. Yeah, I think I did that for a while, and that's how I got. You gotta do what you gotta do, right? Yeah, and then. And then I just, one of my good friends who was a quarterback, he just gave me all these books on like lifting. I literally took Nebraska Cornhusker. They have an incredible strength and conditioning program, especially when it comes to football. Because it's a basic football program they had. They had this incredible book, and I literally checked it out of the library and just kept it. Yeah. And I just kept reading it, and just so you learn all your power, all your kind of power lifts and stuff like that. And I just worked on that, and then eventually I got really into it, and then started competitive powerlifting and stuff like that too. Really? So that all that just played with each other. So all I really cared about was, hey, I just want to play football. And it wasn't until like end of junior year, where we had some like kind of smaller school scouts come by, and they're like, hey man, if you keep at it, like hit us up. So my whole goal after high school was I want to go play football somewhere in college. So cool. And again, this is all really new. At that point, it was like there wasn't
anybody like us that looked like us doing that.
It wasn't. But then I was very blessed, man. We did well. As a whole team, we did well. We had a great team that year, and then ended up. I think our team ranked like 8th or 6th in state, and so that was really cool. We had an incredible line. We had a great running back. Our quarterback was amazing. He eventually ended up going play for Georgetown. And
really?
And then he went to play Arena League football and stuff like that. Yeah. And so it was really, really cool. But it was. That's all I really cared about. Yeah. Cooking wasn't even a thing for me.
So sports, I think a lot of us hear this sometimes, or at least guys do. That sports it's kind of like they teach you how to it teaches you like life skills.
Yeah, dude.
Which I think you've learned a lot, like how to learn techniques, how to get better at your craft through football, and then now you go on to cooking. How do you think like that kind of helped you put actual work into actually figuring out how to be a better chef?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I always knew was for me, I saw my dad's work ethic. He worked hard. And I think that when I was younger, I always looked at it as that's something I could never do. I could never match that, His
work ethic.
Yeah, because it's he worked really hard. And I'm for me to be to that point where I work that hard, I really would have to really work hard. Yeah. And I think that, I don't know, I think that there's some people, and I was there once, where it's if I don't think that I can obtain it, or if I don't think that I can reach that goal, then I'm not even going to shoot for it, Yeah. And so instead of failing, what you end up doing is you just end up quitting. If I quit now, then I don't fail, right? Yeah. And so I always felt, and that was really tough. I remember even in college, when I started playing ball in college, I hurt myself by my sophomore year. I knew that I just probably couldn't compete anymore, and to that level. And I'm man, and I kind of went on a slump, I kind of was just bummed around. For a little bit I was out of school, for a little bit,
sure.
And then I ended up just kind of cooking, and I think that one of the things that people need to realize how cooking work. For example. Just because you cook doesn't mean you're a chef.
Yeah.
So I think that word chef is used very loosely, where people will be oh my gosh, I've heard people come up and talk to my husband's a great chef, and I'm oh, that's amazing, and I think to myself, well, where does he work? Let me know, And he's oh no, he works for 3M, but he's a great chef.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm no, he's not a chef. He's a cook.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's saying you play you play basketball, but you're not in the NBA, right?
Yeah, or even worse. It's I think it's saying, hey, you talk because you watch the Timberwolves, but you talk you're making decisions, the managing decision team. We did this, we did that. It's I guess there's a we somewhere, but where. What's your court time? How much minutes did you see on the court? Oh no, you watch it in your chair on a TV screen.
Yeah.
So I think that word chef is used very loosely. I even think within the cooking world, I think somebody goes, oh, you work at this restaurant. Oh, he's a chef at this restaurant.
Sure.
Well, no, there's many other positions in there. Yeah. So I think that I learned really quick in the food world how all those positions, all those different names, what they mean and what you do. So a lot of restaurants are based off of a French regiment, when it comes to their kitchen. So you have your executive chef, you have your chef de cuisine, you have your sous chefs, you have your chef de parties, you have your commis, you have your porters. So all these people play a different role. And so one of the things I always think about is I think that it's great to have ambitions. So, for example, if you're a sports person and you're this year I made the freshman team. You're a freshman kid in high school, and then you go, oh, this next year I'm going to try to shoot for JV.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I want to be on varsity. What do I need to do to get there?
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, I feel like I want to pursue my sports career, go into college. So what do we do to get recruiters to come and look at us? Okay, and then you get to college, you start that all over again. Freshman, you move up. So I think that all those roles play a great part in it, and I think especially in the kitchen, I've really learned all these different roles play a great part in it. I think in the last 2-3 years, I've really learned that I ran when we first started Union Hmong Kitchen, I ran it as just a line cook, a cook.
Yep.
And I think that the problem was if you want to be in, like, if you want to run something like this by, you know, you have to learn to wear different hats. And I was just a cook. I'm like, I don't really care about the business end. I don't care about marketing end. I just want to cook, and people, and hopefully people come eat. That's it. Yeah. And I think that as I get older, there's that discipline. You know, I was just kind of having a conversation with a business dude yesterday about it, and I was just saying, you know, I think that I was listening to this podcast, and there was this big restaurateur guy out of Chicago, and he said that most chefs, when they start a restaurant, they're 90% artists, 10% businessmen.
That makes total sense.
And he's like, and that's why they fail. Yeah. Like restaurants it was like 5 years, most restaurants fail under 5 years. Yep. And he's like, the reason why is you wear that artist hat 90% of the time, and you only have your business hat, your businessman hat, your business person hat 10% times too. So I've been really learning. I mean, you know, especially with the sports thing, where it's like I was I was a left guard. You know, I was a left tackle, and so that was our, I was a bigger dude, so that was our blind side to our quarterback when he's throwing. He's a right hand dude. Yeah. So so I kind of knew that my position was outside linebackers and outside DNs. When our high school, a lot of the DNs were stand up DNs, so they're more kind of like an outside linebacker. Yeah. So I knew that I really have to do that push, that kick out block, But again, most of the time, like if you're looking at like film, like I'm never in any of the film. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like, oh yeah, you're like the little speck that is off screen. You know, I was okay with that. I knew what we were, what we did, and I think being able to take that humility and that humbleness, and then by the time I was a senior, became captain, and then being able to kind of share that with the younger guys, where it's like, we had this amazing kid. He was a sophomore. He was amazing. His sophomore year, he was a killer on kickoff and kick return teams. Like the dude would just he's a bigger dude. He would just run down the field and just nail the guys, and that's all he did. Yeah. As a sophomore, and he loved it. And then eventually, after we graduated, and he came up with a few classes, got to play varsity. And so just really learning that, and that translates very well to the kitchen. Sometimes some of my first kitchen job was like, here's a box of 50-pound potatoes, go at it. Yeah.
Well, break it down. Like, who taught you how to cook? Like, would you first act like your first real professional experience like cooking?
I think a lot of it was just my own curiosity. My dad really taught me how to be not afraid of knives. Okay, so it was 6 a.m. We go out to the Amish land. Yeah. They have a pig, chicken, cow, whatever, with all the uncles, and all the aunts. Yeah. And it was my dad gave me the boning knife, and it's like, okay, they cut the pig into primal pieces, and then we have to just cut it down and get it packaged. Yeah. And so you're 15 years old or whatever, 13, 14 years old, and that's where I became very comfortable with using a knife, handling knives, especially when coming to breaking down whole animals. That's where I became very comfortable. A lot of side dishes, what's on, stuff like that, hot dishes and all that stuff, that came from watching my mom. Yeah. And then just kind of watching her and how she does it and trying to do things from memory. Still today, my mom and dad both still teach me today. Yeah. But it's just going home, watching my mom make stuff and asking, hey, how'd you do that? It's the simplest thing of using the right technique to make Nava, right? It's just, I think what's so incredible about our parents or their generation is the way they cook. It's like all these little things that are tedious, but they do it correctly. Yep. So it's just that discipline,
and it makes a big difference.
It does. It does. It's like, when you go to a good taco shop and you see all the, the grandmas, the abuelas in the back, and they're making, they're pressing corn tortillas. Yep. It's just that they're there 8 hours, just that same movement, that same rhythm. The same way I watch my mom make her calapos or making her egg rolls or her fakal, just the same movement, and it's that movement they've made.
It's a technique.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. And that's in everything I think you do. Yeah. I remember in football, the first 30 minutes of practice was just us literally getting in a 3-point stance, and the coach moving the ball, hiking the ball, and we just get off. It's just 3-point stance, get off, and we literally just did it repeated over and over and over. And I didn't understand why we were doing this, but then eventually it's muscle memory.
Yeah.
Like, you know where your stance is, you know how you balance yourself. So yeah, so I learned a lot of that from them, and then and then just different chefs I worked with. They just watching different techniques, and again, when it comes to cooking in restaurants, like your goal in your restaurant is to be in like a 2-3 foot space. That's your space, and making those movements. You're constantly making the same move over and over. And so,
where did you? Because Union Kitchen isn't your first restaurant experience, of course. Where else have you worked before that?
Yeah, I mean, I started in college. I worked at a few of these like kind of quote unquote high end Italian restaurants. So I learned how to. Again, dude, Christian, for real, I never wanted to cook Asian food, let alone Hmong food. Like, my mom would be, "Oh, it'd be so good. You should learn how to cook Asian food." And I remember I was in high school, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I was like always very embarrassed of like Hmong food, and Asian food and stuff like
Bringing that around.
Yeah, man. It's so funny. I think as you get older, like you run so far from what you want to be that you actually run back towards it. So it's like this circle thing, man. It's like, I don't want to be like, this is so embarrassing. We were the kids that got made fun of because like we bought stinky food at school, and so it's like I want to be far away from that. So I worked at this Italian restaurant, learned a lot from there. Ended up working at this barbecue like place, which that's where I learned a lot about cooking over fire, cooking, grilling. Where my dad's taught. And then when I came up to the Twin Cities here about eight years ago, I worked at a bunch of different little places, just like. But then I ended up working at this place called Nighthawks, which is it just opened at the time. So I wanted to learn pastry. I'm not a real big pastry guy, but they needed a pastry assistant, so I learned how to like bake pies, make breads. And that's the one thing I learned how from that place was how to make a pie crust.
Yeah.
It's like, I think I'm like so it's just like every year it's just like around this time fall when you're baking, I'm like, let's make apple pies. So like that's where I learned how to do that.
Okay.
Just learning like all the little technique stuff that goes on with that. And then even though I'm not a baker, I'm not a pastry person, I'm too impatient for that. I ended up working at this place called Burrow, which is really cool. I ended up working at this place called Spoon Stable.
Yeah, that's a big spot here.
And I think after that, I think I was having some health issues. I was like, I don't know if I can like do these long hours anymore. So I left there, and then just trying to, then we were able to start like a little catering company. So that's kind of where Union Kitchen came out of, was this kind of catering company. And then we started with a couple pop-ups, and then kind of we were very blessed.
So you guys first started as catering, and then you were like, well, let's just do a pop-up.
You still have to pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
So at that time, I was working at Coastal Seafoods, doing fish.
Yeah.
So I wanted to learn more about fish. So every job that I had, I was just like interested. I want to learn about fish. I want to learn about.
That's awesome.
I wanted to learn more about oysters. I wanted to learn about all this stuff. Like I think there's a lot of things that we as Hmong people, like this is like kind of my little soapbox. I feel like there's a lot of things as Hmong people, we just take other people's word for it.
Sure.
So like and then this is the one thing that I love explaining to, especially like young Hmong kids. I'm like, we'll just like, for example, I have a lot of cousins and stuff out there who, when they talk to me about food, I could tell that they went and read like what's all the cool, sexy places, and then they just talk about that, and I'm like,
they've never even been there.
Yeah, so one of the things I really strive hard for is be able to say, hey, how about we go experience it?
Yeah, before you say no or say yes.
Yeah, let's just go experience it. And let's go find out for ourselves. So I think that for Hmong people, sometimes we're in a way, we're waiting for the culture to tell us what is cool, what is trendy. And then what ends up doing is we just keep hopping on what the next trend is, And I think that sometimes so this is what's been really interesting is as I learn more of the history of our people, and I realize is our people historically have set our own tone. Like we think of all like our parents, our grandparents who came from these hills of Laos, like we set our own tone. Our people did what they want. They were free. And I think that sometimes being here in the West or being here as part of a minority culture, we're waiting for the majority culture to tell us what is cool and what's in.
Compared to what our parents were like back
then. Where they said, hey, like this is what we need to do to make it. And so for me, I've really taken that and said, hey, I want to learn something. I want to just learn. I want to go deep into it. And so for me, I was like, that time was like, I can work part-time doing, being a fish cutter at at Coastal Seafoods, and then on the other end, I can and learn about really great fish, how like good fish, working with great product, and then on the other hand, the catering aspect paid the bills. That's what it did, and then it's like we were able to say, hey, how do we get what we love doing? How do we get to others? So I'm like, well, this. Doing a pop-up is kind of like the first step, and at that point I had like $350, and I was like, I took that money and I'm like, okay, well, let's just start our first pop-up. And we did, and I took that money, put it in there, and I'm like, hopefully we make $350 back. At least, and, at least we didn't know what was gonna happen. But
and take us through the results of that. I don't know, how was your first pop-up?
It was really good. The one thing I love about the Hmong community is like I always joke with people. Everyone always talks about how there's this thing called Black Twitter, where like it's like the African American people, they're all into it. I'm like, there's Hmong Facebook, dude. Like that's like legit. Like Hmong Facebook, like if you wrong someone, like if you wrong like a if you wrong like a Hmong Yang or something, dude, like you get some on Hmong Facebook. And I don't know who runs Hmong Facebook. I don't know if there's this like 19 clan entity, where they come meet every year or whatever. But man, there's legit Hmong Facebook, and because it's like you put one thing on there, or if there's like, hey, come support this person, it's like boom, everybody's like droves come. And that's what I love about our people. There's that sense of but then on the other end of that, dude, if something goes wrong, man, you get blown up. Torn apart. And like some cousin you didn't know from Fresno will even hear about your business, And so we were really we were very blessed to have that. And so our first. We were at Eastside St. Paul, at Cook St. Paul, and our first pop-up we did, I think at 220 was our covers. We did 220 people-ish. And and we were just, it was one of the craziest things we've ever seen. And Eddie, who runs that shop and he does pop-ups, he goes, you guys, I've never seen anything like this before. He's like, man, your people come out and drove. I'm like, dude. They're sitting in line for a few hours and stuff like that. And at that time, we were just making like kind of more basic Hmong food, and it had a quote-unquote little twist to it. But I think that was like kind of the first start. And then eventually, over the years, I think been able to strip down and really, really, really know like who we are, what kind of food we want to do, kind of understand our vision, our mission, our values, what are our goals, and then, just kind of working on that.
Well, you brought up your food. You said, you guys kind of started off basic, which I think is a great way to start off. Then you can kind of figure out what people like. But how have you guys adapted? I mean, I think a lot of your food is very, like Hmong people wouldn't call it like traditional Hmong food, right? There's a different twist to it. I'll let you explain it, but I think it's not traditional Hmong food, but it has that Hmong aspect in it.
So this is what I always say to people, and I think that when we first started, our biggest battle was actually our own people, and that's hard, man. That's hard. It's hard. I remember we were featured at Tastemade. Tastemade had this did this video with us, shoot with us, and it was amazing, man. Like literally. All the other chefs that they had on that video were like big name guys, Michelin star guys, and they decided, the producer, he's from LA, he called me and he's like, hey man, like I would love to do one video with you guys. He's like, I found you guys, and I really think that I want to really tell people who the Hmong people are, and so it's like super cool. And we got it put up there. It was probably one of their, they said that it was probably one of their most sought out video, and he's like, I think in like a month, he said, he got over like 1 million views on it and everything. So they're like, and literally I made, I showed them how to do Hmong sausage, purple sticky rice, and then tokotsa. That's basically it. And the reason why was because we wanted to make Hmong food. And so, but then there were so many great like comments. But then I started reading all the bad comments, which I probably shouldn't. It's like picking a scab, man. You're like, I don't want to do this, but I kind of want to. And I was like depressed for like a week because there were some harsh things. Just kind of like, you're bastardizing our food. You're making it, you're just trying to make a quick buck. Like, how dare you do this to your people and stuff. And it's just like, man, you guys don't know my story. Dude, like, are you serious? And so it was really hard. And I think that what really got me through this was this moment where a buddy of mine who's not even Hmong, He's a Taiwanese buddy, and he said, you know what? It seems to me is that Hmong food isn't a type of food, but it's a philosophy of food. It's a way of thinking about food. If you really think about Hmong food, think about our parents when they lived in Laos. And the way they did food there, it was because of what the land gave them. It was because of what they could farm. It's because of the people around them. They learned techniques from the Laotians, from the Thais, from the Vietnamese, from the Cambodians. Now let's move past that and say our great-great-great-grandparents, who a lot of them are from Western China. The way that they did food in the hills of Western China, I bet you it's a little different than the way they did it in the hills of Laos, which I think is a little different than when they did it in the refugee camp in Thailand. Which when our people came to America, right? And now we have a disperse of people. So we have Hmong people that live out in Sacramento, live out in Portland, live out in Seattle. We have Hmong people living down in Florida, in Arkansas, and Wisconsin, here in the Twin Cities. If you look at all the way that the Hmong people cook, it's a little different from each other because we use what's given to us. Because I guarantee you that people out in Fresno, the way that they do food is a little different than the way we do food here. But do we look at them and say your food is less Hmong because it's not done like the way they do it in Laos? That would be dumb of us. Our people have always been about this transitional people. Wherever we went to, we took and we learned from the land, we learned from the people, and then that became this. Then that forged into our own culture, and then the next generation builds onto that. So wouldn't it make sense that here in the Twin Cities, that the way that we do Hmong food, and I really use that word Hmong food, is learning from the different chefs from around here. I'm learning from the different farmers around here, from the Hmong farmers, from the Mika farmers. I'm learning from all that. And I think that something is Hmong not because it's done like in a quote unquote traditional, because that word traditional to me is a very loose word, that it's done the way that they did it in Laos or Thailand. I think it's Hmong because we're Hmong people. It's made by Hmong hands.
Agreed.
So to me, when people go, oh, like you guys don't do traditional Hmong food, I'm like, define traditional Hmong food. Because if you really want to go, we can go way back. Like you want to go 300 years back, we can do that too. Like just to, like, for example, I say, describe to me what traditional American food is. That's really hard because America, here, let's just take the Twin Cities. Here in the Twin Cities, what is northern food? Like, what is northern food, right? Like, here in the north, like, what is it? Like, I can tell you. It's hard. Like, would you say, oh, it's Swedish meatballs, it's lefse, it's, Norwegian style food? Not really, man. Because if you look around here, look at all the immigrant groups around here, look at all the different cultures around here. Like, a lot of these restaurants are, like, look at all these restaurants. There's a lot of restaurants out there that are doing Korean style barbecue wings. They're doing, kimchi burgers. Like, they're taking from all these cultures that have landed here. And so does it make it less American because it's not just like a cheeseburgers with fries? Even the whole idea of a cheeseburger with fries, like that came from a different, So I think that my pushback sometimes when people go, oh, you guys don't do traditional Hmong food, it's like we do traditional Hmong food, but how do you define that, what traditional is? But here's the deal. I really believe that Hmong food doesn't really have to do with food. Hmong food is actually about the spirit of hospitality. So, you get it, man. Like, when you go to someone's house, like, especially go to a Hmong person's house and they're making dinner, and, like, even if you're just going off to drop off, like, oh, I borrowed a shovel, you're coming in to eat. Right? Like, that sense of hospitality, dude. And then when you do, it's like, they're going to feed you a lot. And then they're going to make sure you have enough. And then if they're going to pack some stuff for you to go home, too.
They won't let you leave either unless you pack some food.
And that's Hmong food, man. So that's the vision of what we're trying to do as we move towards our brick and mortar and having a permanent space, brick and mortar space. So
we'll talk a little bit more about your brick and mortar in a bit, but talk about the Union Kitchen. Like, how did you guys come up with that name? How did you guys come up with the concept? And kind of like, how's it adapted today?
So to be completely honest, my buddy and I were sitting at a dinner table and we were kind of talking, and I think his wife's like putting his kids to bed and we're talking, and we were about to do our pop-up, but we didn't have a name, right? And there was a food writer that says, hey, I think in like 2 weeks I had to talk to this food writer, and they're like, we want to know what your name is, like, what you guys are gonna be called.
How'd they find out about you?
I was actually Eddie, because
okay.
like they came to Eddie and said, "Hey, we want to write this big article about Eddie Wu, who owns Cook St. Paul on East Side on Payne Ave."
Okay.
He said, "Hey man, we had this food writer. She's coming in to write on what we're doing, and here are a few pop-ups that I want to talk about." And then the food writer is like, "How about we just get all the people who are running these pop-ups come sit down and let's all just talk." So that's what Eddie wanted to do. So we're like, okay, so there was like 4 of us, right? I think it was dumplings. Lola dumplings was kind of like a Chinese style place, and then it was Lola Rosa, so it was a bunch of like 12 Filipino cousins, so they were really cool guys. It was us, and then it was Eddie was doing like a Korean style pop up there. So so she wanted to talk to us, and they're like, "Oh, that's awesome." And then she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I just want to do an article about this Hmong pop up." She's like, "I've never written about Hmong food before. And do you guys have a name?" And I'm like, "No." so I'm like, she's like, "Well, we'll do the interview and then just get back to me on the name." I'm like, "Okay." So I'm like, "Crap, I got to make up a name." And so my buddy and I were sitting at his dinner table, and we just talked about the idea that food unifies people together, regardless of where you come from. And he's like, "Yeah, maybe you just call it because we're like, we just call it Union Kitchen." And I'm like, "Okay, great." And then it's kind of like we laughed about it, and I'm like, "Oh, let's just go with that name." So we kind of wanted that name. It worked really well. But then we started realizing that what we're really trying to do is to unify people together through Hmong food. And Union Kitchen has a very ambiguous name. So it's just like, what kind of food do you guys do? Because we always get asked, what kind of food do you guys do? So, through a marketing group that we work with, they say, "You know what, let's put the word Hmong in the middle." So Union Hmong Kitchen. And so we're like, "Oh, that sounds great." So the idea that what we do is Hmong food. And what we try to do is we want to try to, in the Hmong culture, food brings everyone together, and a lot of our unifying is around food. Everything we do, weddings, funerals, parties, every kind of parties, it's just based on food, And so we really wanted that to be our anthem. But eventually, it started unfolding, and as I started realizing is that what was exciting me was actually the food of my mom and dad's table. Growing up, learning how to yingai with my dad, watching my mom do all the stuff she did, watching her make pako, make her kalapos and stuff like that, watching her make naba. She's using all these different techniques. And my mom's never claimed, she's always said this, we were, I think it was some interview with CNN or something like that, and they asked her "Oh, do you love cooking?" And she goes, "I'm not a really good cook. I just like cooking." And so she's always cooking, even with the grandkids, even with us. She's always cooking, always cooking. Her big thing is to make sure there's always food in the house for her kids, for her family. And I just thought, I mean, where most of us, we could just say that about us. It's our moms are all like that, and our grandmas are all like that. And so for us, for a lot of Hmong people, when I say that, they're all like, "Yeah, they totally get it." But for other different cultures and other Western cultures, they seek that. And they seek the hospitality. And so we say, "Hey, let's do this." So about almost a year ago, Sociable Cider Works, which is a brewery in Northeast, came to us and said, "Hey, we have this food trailer that we're building out right now. Can you help us design it? And then do you want to do a residency in it? So you come in, you run the food program." So it gave us a little home. Instead of hopping around different places every week, kind of gave us a home. It was like, I tell people it's not a brick and mortar, it's more of a straw mud place. You can fall down anytime. So we kind of took it over, and then we just base our restaurant out of there. So you can do the ciders, you can do beer in the brewery, and then just order food, and then just come up and we get food.
Well, I think that's smart, because I think a lot of breweries, they just do beer, and then they're looking for people food trucks to be able to come by and sit in the parking lots to be able to get people food. But you guys are there every time, and they have a constant traffic.
So we're 6 days a week.
You guys bring your own traffic too, and so I think it's just a great partnership. What about your dishes? What are some dishes that Hmong and I guess people that aren't Hmong like?
So we we have this remember as a kid like growing up and you would go to like KFC or Popeyes and you get fried chicken and you come home and you get like sticky rice or regular rice and you get hot sauce and you take that crispy fried chicken with that real big crust, you dip it in the potato and then you eat it with rice because you didn't care about the mac and cheese or the the mashed potatoes, whatever came with it. All you did was that big bucket of fried chicken, right? And so that's always been something super, like, it's always stuck in my head. This whole idea of like, oh wow, like fried chicken is actually really good with rice and peppers, right?
It is,
that's all it is. Like that's my jam in the morning, right?
I can eat that anytime.
Anytime, right? And it's all about those little crumbs, right? It's like those crumbs that fall down, and then you take the sticky rice, and you kind of like
grab them.
You kind of wedge them in there, and you get that quetzal dip, and then that crunch, that big like fried chicken flavor. So we have one a dish called our Hill Tribe fried chicken. So our Hill Tribe chicken, we have two of them. We have the grilled, where we grill it over a wood fire, or then we have the fried. So we make a slurry out of the hard cider from Sociable with tapioca flour, rice flour, and cornstarch, right? And then we put all the seasoning in it, and then we dip the rice just like you would do fried chicken. So we didn't intend this, but we realized after we did it, we're like, oh, this is actually gluten free. So we have a lot of people who like wants fried chicken, because a lot of times fried chicken is dusted with flour, so it's gluten. So there's a lot of gluten free people now that are coming there. And we're going through a lot of chicken. So we use chicken thighs, like boneless chicken thighs. We just do that. And then my mom has this quetzal she makes, so we just call it Mama Vang's hot sauce.
Yeah, awesome.
And so we, literally right out of the fryer, real hot, we just put that hot sauce right on top. So you have it. So the way that we do a double fry, so you fry it once and then, you kind of let it cool, and then you do that really hard second fry. So the outside is like a hard crust, and then you have the tender inside, and then you have that hot, my mom's hot sauce she makes. Where every year they make 65 to 70 gallons for us. Jeez. So it's like a roasted
your
hot
mom
sauce.
does?
Yeah, my mom and dad do. They love being kind of part of it. Like they're as much part of this restaurant as anybody.
Okay.
Yeah, and so
that's a little secret for everybody.
Yeah, dude. And then we you can get a side of purple sticky rice with it, man. Like
awesome.
it goes really well with beer and cider.
I gotta try that. I mean, I've had your food. I haven't had it with any beer before. So
a lot of Hmong food goes really well with cocktails. Like if you want to do like a bourbon cocktail, we're actually working right now. It's not like we're still in the talks, but there's a distillery that we're kind of teaming up with to make cocktails that have Hmong influence.
Really?
So we're
awesome.
dorking out with like a rum nava. Kind of cocktail. Yeah. So we were like kind of playing with some flavor. I'm like, dude, like rum and like nava, And so we're pretty excited.
That might be the next thing.
Yeah, dude, ramen nava.
I can drink nava all day.
Dude, I know, for real. Like, who cares about all like the little stuff in there? Like just the liquid, from the nava, like that coconut milk with the simple syrup, and then that little flavoring thing. Which what it is? I found out what the little flavoring thing is. It's a banana extract. That's what it is. It's like when you eat like Laffy Taffy and it has a banana flavor. That's what it is.
Okay.
So like I'm thinking about that anyway. So and that goes really well. A lot of light beers go really well with Hmong food because it's very herbaceous, very spicy sometimes. So yeah, man, we got that, and then we got our barbecue pork that we do. The one that we right now is really popular is our charred broccoli. So we take broccoli, we throw it over the fire, we char it kind of dark, and then we toss it in almost kind of like a lob tossing, lob seasoning, with charred broccoli. Yeah. Broccoli's like real thick. It's like it's got that kind of, it's really good flavors there. And then being able to do some stuff with that's kind of my play on like a broccoli salad. Those old school broccoli salad you can get at Cubs Food. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's kind of our play on it. Yeah, man. And then we do taro chips. Okay. We buy a bunch of taro roots, we shave it real thin, and then we do taro chips, and then we put this fermented hot sauce we put on top with some cotija cheese and stuff, and so
cool.
So it's bar food, it's definitely brewery food, but it's a lot of it represent, and then we do like our own version of kopong and stuff like that. Once in a while we'll throw in some special, and then we actually went to one of our good friends who runs a butcher shop, Lowry Hill Meats. We gave him our recipe for our Hmong sausage, so he makes all the Hmong sausage for us. We just don't have space,
of course.
So that they do all the Hmong sausage for us.
I did not know that.
So there's Hmong sausage in there from them, and so it's just it's pretty fun. I mean, we tell people if you haven't had Hmong food before, like this is a great start to it.
Yeah.
If you had Hmong food before, this is a new way of a new lens.
Yeah.
To look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Yeah, I think that all sounds amazing. I'm still stuck in that like
fried chicken thing.
No, the alcoholic number.
Oh, dude, right? Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
I also think too is like the flavors of ngakajina. Use that with some like a bourbon.
Yeah.
Do like brown sugar, star anise, cinnamon.
Yeah.
Well, what else we put in? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like use that.
That would make sense.
So I was talking to him, my buddy who runs the distillery. I was talking about. I'm like, give him the flavors of ngakaji. I'm like, you can take that and we use like a bourbon, like make it into like a bourbon drink. And he's like, oh man, that might work.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
So
that'd be awesome. Cool. Well, I'm excited for that. I'll be one of your.
Dude, we'll let you guys know when it all comes out. The collaboration comes out. We're really really excited. Dude, Rum out to me right away. I was just like, oh my gosh, you get dangerous, dude.
That's not.
You get dangerous.
That is super dangerous.
Yeah.
Won't be able to stop myself.
Yeah.
Talk about this is Expectations podcast. Talk about a little about your parents and like their view on like what you guys are doing at the beginning and then kind of now.
Yeah, so I think at the beginning, like any Hmong parents, I think at the beginning they want us to be okay. They wanted me to be well. They wanted me to have a consistent job. I think it's security, right?
Yeah.
If you historically look at our people have not had that security. It wasn't until we came to became refugees here and then I even think about so I was born in Thailand, came here when I was 5, but I think about like my nieces and nephew, like they're being raised here in America, being born here. There's a sense of security that they automatically have.
Yeah.
I feel old when I look at them and they're all like on their tablets and they're on all their iPhones and stuff. I'm like, you don't understand, guys. You don't understand that when we wanted to watch TV back in the day, we had to do the bunny ears antenna, that we had to put tinfoil on it just to get like PBS to watch Arthur.
The right angle.
Yeah, man. We didn't know anything. Like there wasn't a flip where we can just watch cable. Anyways. So I think that what they really want is for us to be secure, like to do well. And so I think that out of when I started doing the food stuff, I think my parents were like, oh, that's great, but when are you going to get a real job that has that security, has insurance, has your 401k, have a job where you can move up, where a lot of cooking jobs, when you start, you just wander from, and then I think when we started actually doing the pop-ups, it was okay, but still, like, it wasn't bringing in money. I think in every Hmong family, Hmong parents' mind, it's not about making as much money as you can, but but money does bring that sense of security, right? Yeah. And it does have that sense of if something does happen to, like my parents always say, if something does happen to us, the kids can take care of themselves. They can take care of themselves. Yeah. So I was always real frustrated because I just felt like maybe they just don't care about what I do. But I think a lot of that changed when when there was a lot of media pickup about what we were doing, and then I think a lot of it changed when I stopped seeing my parents as they just don't understand what we're trying to do, but bringing them in on it. So
them making peppers.
Yeah. So they make the peppers. Like my mom's really famous within my chef world friends. Oh yeah. For example, this one of my buddies, Jorge Guzman, who is he's a James Beard finalist. So James Beard is kind of it's like the Academy Award for chefs for around the U.S. and he's one of the finalists. He's a great guy. Incredible chef, and I think he had one of my mom's hot sauce, and he just texted me. He's like, bro, it's the best thing I've ever put in my mouth. Really? Yeah, I mean, this is one of the top chefs in the nation, right? Yeah. And I told my mom that. I was like, Mom, this is one of the best chefs in the nation right now. And he thinks your hot sauce is the best thing, and she's just like, that's nice. Well, if you need some, no, you come more, if you want some, just give him a little, Yeah. And then he's like, that's cool. And I'm like, man, there are people out there that when they hear it, they'll be like, my stuff is amazing. Yeah. It's so humbling, what I'm saying? To see that, my mom and dad's not phased like that. So our Hmong sausage recipe is based on something I learned from my dad, right? So we entered this sausage contest and we won, right? Around here, we won, and it was majority Mika people that came to this contest, and they were just blown away by the Hmong sausage that we made. They're just like, I've never tasted anything like this before, right? And what's really cool, and some of these big like sausage producers that were there that came up to us and they're like, man, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And some of these like big name guys too.
Yeah.
And I went home, we won, and I told my dad, I'm like, hey dad, like we won this, like it was with your recipe. And he laughs. He's like, oh, people like that stuff? Which like, again, I'm like, yeah, they do.
Yeah.
But then like inside, it's like, man, it's very humbling because like, here's my mom and dad, they're not like budged by this. They don't feel like they don't wear this. Like any accolades that we get, they're just happy for us.
Yeah.
And so that really changed my mind in the way that I view my mom and dad, in the way that I view the way that we do food. People always ask, what is your why? I was actually just with a reporter, and she asked me, like, what is your why? Like, why do you cook?
Yeah.
And some people will talk about, oh, I want to win these awards. I'm doing this because I love food, and
They want to be the best.
be the best. Yeah, I have those desires too.
Sure.
But my main desire to do is to tell the story of my mom and dad. So we always say that every dish has a narrative. You follow a narrative long enough and close enough, you get to the people behind the food. And once you're there, it's not about the food; it's actually about the people. My dad fought in the war. My mom sacrificed a lot. They met in the refugee camp in 78. They were there. They raised us there. We came to America in 88, 89. And my dad sacrificed a lot. And he could have stayed in Thailand, and he could have been he would have been a really well respected man, someone who was a great warrior, great soldier, fought in the war, but he left all that because he believed that there was a greater dream for us. And then my mom said something. We were being interviewed by this TV show. My mom said something. My mom said, the moment we left Thailand, the moment we left that area, the moment we left the home that we knew that we would become nothing and our children would be everything. And that changes you, bro. Like when you realize that somebody gave up their life so that you can have life, it changes you, man. Yeah. And so for me, every dish that we do has to have an element of my mom and dad in it. I don't care if it's a sandwich. I don't care if it's a whatever. Like, everything that we do, I'm always telling myself, when people come eat, on the trailer, we have this sandwich called a sloppy chow. It's our version of the sloppy joe, right? But basically, it's kind of like curry seasoning, ground beef, and then we put coconut cream in it. And and then we get these special buns, specially made for it. Yeah. And then we take those ISI bottles where they shoot whipped cream out, and they put in, they shake it up, and the whipped cream comes out. So we put like a coconut crema in it. So we put coconut milk, lime juice, and then we make so it's like a fluffy cloud of coconut cream that has that's like a little tang with lime juice. So basically it's like kapong in a sandwich. Think about it. Yeah. It's all the kapong flavors in a sandwich. Yeah. And so when we eat that, when we made that sandwich, the reason why I call it sloppy chow instead of Joe, one of our cousins, Chow, used to help us. And so I'm like, I'll just name it after him because he loves sandwiches. Yeah. So he's a student up at UMD. So I'm always like, this one's for you, bro. And so every 5 cents we get from it, we send up to your college fund. No beer money. Anyways, so we made this. It was like when we were a kid, I remember my mom would go to the food pantry and they would get these sloppy joe, the can, like sloppy joe. And all you do is cook some ground beef or ground pork and you pour it in. And we would always eat that with white bread, because like that was like, we really like migafu. So my mom would always kind of make that, like that sloppy joe for us growing up. And so, man, again, everything we do has an element of them. And I always tell people, you're not actually eating our food. You're coming to, yes, our hands are making it, but you're actually eating my mom and dad's food. Like you're eating at the table with us. Yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, I think that's why you guys where you guys are now, because I think your why is bigger than yourselves. It's
got to be, man. Yeah. Like I think that we're talking about expectations and stuff like that. Your why has to be like doing what you do has to be bigger than yourself. And I always think, I was so I majored in communication, interpersonal. So interpersonal communication was my major. And one of the things that one of my first communication class they always said is, what is more important, the intention of the message or the interpretation of the message? And I think this is very important. And I think that as people who if we're trying to send a message, we're like, well, this is what our intentions are. This is what our intentions are. And we're not helping the people who we're sending the message to interpret it and say, this is actually what I'm trying to say. Yep. I think that there will be miscommunication. And I think that one of the big things, especially when it comes to expectation, I think our parents have great expectations for us in the way of like they're coming from a good place. It's not like they have ill feeling. They don't want us to fail, but how they communicate that intention sometimes is where it gets lost. And I think that's where a lot of Hmong kids like with expectations they miss it. Man, because it's like, well, they want all these things and they're putting all this pressure on it, but it's like, but we have to just interpret their intentions, interpret what they're trying to say. It comes from good intent. It does, and it does, and I think even though it may not seem that way, it is good intent. 90% of the time, it comes from good intentions, and so for me, it wasn't until after I got done with college, I was an older adult, and I started realizing, I started seeing that, wow, like they were employing me, they were pushing me on because they were so scared for me. You know, like, you take care of, like, I'm not a parent, but, like, I can't imagine, like, you take care of this child for 18 years and then you send them off to live 3 or 4 hours or sometimes, across the country, and you can't protect them anymore. And I remember as a kid, like, my mom and dad, like, when we struggled, when we didn't have enough, like, they never showed us that. They took all that pain. You know what I'm saying? They shouldered all that pain, all that stress. And I was just a happy kid, man. Like, there's always food on the table. But I didn't realize until how poor we were at times. But then my parents protected us from that. And so I think that a lot of that, like once we let that sink in, like I think just like younger kids, younger Hmong kids, like let that sink in a little bit, like, like let that sink in. Like, really think through that. Because, again, I was a stupid 18-year-old kid too. That had some, dumb thoughts. I'm like, they don't care. I'm just doing my own thing. But eventually, I think as I got older, I realized like they do care. They're just...
It's just showing it in a way that is different from what you would like to for them to be able to show it in.
Because I know that, honestly, I know my mom and dad loves me. I know, but like to hear them say, "Well, we're really proud of what you're doing." It's just not something they say. But I don't think that they're not proud. They just don't say it. But I don't. You know what I'm saying?
They'll show it in a different way. Like it's hard for them to say "I love you," but they just bought you a bunch of food and cooked you food. And that's the way of saying I love you, right?
Exactly. I remember football games, Friday nights after any other game, we come home and I come home to the house. There's always a fresh pot of rice and some kind of meat that was like left on the counter for me. Like my dad couldn't make it to all my games. And I think he only came to like 1 or 2 of them. But he didn't come to a lot of them. Because he was always working. And so, like I didn't have like a lot of my Miga friends, like their parents were the ones, they were like the football parents, they're game, they're wearing the jersey. My parents didn't do that. They were working. They had other things to do. I totally get it, but they always made sure that no matter what, like regardless of my games, like regardless if I had 15 tackles or no tackles, regardless if we won or lost, like I came home, there's always like just food on the table.
100%. Talk about what's next for you, man. Like you kind of brought up your brick and mortar a little bit earlier.
So we are right now in the process of putting together. We're working with a couple teams, but we're putting together brick and mortar. So we're looking for buildings. We found some that are that are cool. But we have one coming. Where I think. It's like buying a house, right? Location. So it's kind of it's tough, and we got we're gonna raise some funds. We got some stuff saved. So I mean we're in this process, and we want this restaurant to be a place where like. Again, people want to know what Hmong food is. They want to know about our story and stuff. They can come here, but really, you'll find that. But really, this place is going to be a homage to my mom and dad. It's going to be a place where you come in. It's going to be like their dinner table. You're going to have that feeling, like you're going to be taken care of. And that it's a place where there will be a lot of symbolism of who my mom and dad is, who I know them to be, and then who they are, and you'll see that in the food, you'll see that in the way that you're taken care of and stuff like that. So,
awesome.
So we
can't wait to come out, man. That'd be I think it's gonna be a great place. I mean, you guys have great food already, great squad.
Thanks, man.
So I'm just really excited to be able to see that.
And we're always just looking for new, like young cooks who want to cook, and so we're always looking for people who just say, hey, I want to come sling it with you for a little bit and see how it is, and so we're always open to that. And it's I think I especially I love cooking like with young Hmong kids, because they always are like, oh wow, like I can, when I eat that, I think of like they think about that, and I'm like, yes, exactly. That's where I want you to think when you're eating that, So
Cool.
so stuff like that,
Cool. Yeah. So I guess I always like to end off with this, which is like, what would you say to somebody that kind of wants to be like you or wants to get into the food industry or wants to become a chef? What are some, I guess, some tips or some words of motivations? Yeah.
Part of me goes, be a doctor or a lawyer.
Just like our parents.
Yeah. Be better than me. No, I would say is get experience.
Yeah.
Experience is great. Like, if you want to do the culinary school route, do it. I didn't do it, but I think I would have learned a lot from it too.
Sure.
So it's different how you get there, It's like mechanics, right? Some people went to, school for it. Some people, once they touch things, they get it, So it's like, I would say get experience. I think that come without expectations. Because like one of the things, the guys that there are young cooks that have come and like try working on the trailer with us and stuff sometimes, or even just come and do food with us. The ones who don't last are the ones who come in with their own expectations.
Gotcha.
Like, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna be the next so and so. Like, I'm gonna have my own YouTube, whatever channel. Like, I'm gonna do this, and it's great to have ambition, but when you're young, dude, just shut up and listen.
Yeah.
Like, if you can just shut up and listen for 2 years, and glean and learn and glean and surround yourself with people who are passionate about their craft, like that's gonna rub off on you.
Yeah.
And like one of the things, I worked at this one kitchen when I was in college, and I tell people I'm not that good of a cook. I was fast enough to keep up with the tickets. Like, I'm not that good of a cook, but I was fast enough to keep up with the tickets. And I was, but one of the main reasons why one of my first chefs that I worked for, like, that he liked me was because I lived a clean life. Like, I wasn't out drinking, I wasn't doing drugs, I wasn't coming in high, I wasn't calling in from jail saying, hey, like, I got put in the drunk tank and and do whatever. Like, I didn't do that. And he told me one day, he's like, I like you because you're dependable.
Yeah.
Like, I know that when your shift starts at 4, you'll be here at 3:30. Like, you're just dependable. And by me being dependable, he just kind of kept pushing me up. Kept going, okay, you're gonna do this now. Okay, I want you to run this. Like, tonight it's gonna be a little slower night, so you're gonna run this whole thing by yourself, and you're gonna be the one in charge. And I was like, I think I was like 20 at that time, 20, 21, and I was really young, and he empowered me. He just said, hey. But it was more like, it was because I was dependable. Yeah. And I think that for like a lot of young people who want to get into the food world, I'm like, that's what you do, man. You got to know that you start from the bottom. You got to be okay with,
Can't skip any steps.
Yeah, you got to be okay with like, peeling 50 pounds of potatoes. Like, you got to be okay with doing like the little knife work. So all these techniques, like, it's like anybody who would do sports, I tell you, it's all technique. Yeah. You can have all the natural talent you want, but if you don't have technique, like the dude who has technique is going to outwork you anytime. So, it's like, I know you watch basketball and you see some of these guys and they're like, how did you learn how to how did you learn how to cut like that? How did you learn techniques? It's repetition. The same movement.
Doing the small things to be able to get to that.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so that's what I say. And then I tell people, like, and get experience. Yeah. And anytime you can get experience. Yeah. Understanding that what you're doing is, it sounds so dorky, but you're investing in yourself.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's what you're doing when you're getting experience. You're just investing in yourself. Yeah. And then I would say the last thing I would say is, if you quiet everything around you, you realize that there's a story like going on. Look for those stories, man. Like, look for those stories. Like, look what, and then you will eventually find your passion from there. For me, it was when I quieted everything. I quieted all the BS about whatever, and I really realized that the story I want to tell for the rest of my life is the legacy of my mom and dad, and just letting people know who they are to us as the children, who they are to their family, to their community. And then have their legacy just being known. So when people come in and enjoy our food, I smile not because, it's our food. It's actually, I smile because it's actually my mom and dad's food. Yeah. And my mom and dad will probably never understand or never get to see that. But when, when we have people come in and goes, dude, this is so bomb. Like, I come here once a week. I drive out of my way after work here once a week just to get this chicken or whatever. I just think to myself, yep, mom and dad, you know, where people go, like, can I get a little extra of that hot sauce? And we're like, yep. And and it's just something for us. It's like, like it's their stories. You know?
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah, no problem.
I think your story is amazing. I think you guys are gonna do great. I'm excited for the brick and mortar.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to come out and try that rum nava. That's gonna be
dude. Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be so fun. Yeah, thanks a lot, brother. Catch you later, man.
Yep.